sliding barn door for less than $100. Let's get into this. We're going to start by framing these out. I've already cut my 2x4s and stained them, and we're just going to get a drill bit that's at least the size of your screw head. What we're doing is basically countersinking these, and then I'm going to put in 8 total screws on this frame, one on the outside and one on the inside to hold all this together. And of course I'm using Torx head screws here because I'm an absolute hack of a carpenter. As you can see here, these screws are going in at like a 45-degree angle, so don't flush up that outside, or when you tighten it up, it'll actually pull that bottom board past flush. Give yourself just like a 1/16 of an inch or so it'll come up nice and even there. And on the inside of this corner, we're doing basically the same thing, just countersink here, get you a 45-degree-ish angle started, and then add your screw in all the way till it's good and snug. Then just repeat this exact process on all 4 corners, and you should have a frame that is relatively sturdy at this point. Now, I'm sure there's actual math for this next part, but I basically just lay everything out the way I think it should look. I do measure to make sure that my end gaps are exactly the same. But I'm laying this other 2x4 stud at an angle from corner to corner, and then when I get it where I want it, I just lay a speed square on it, eyeball it square with the bottom frame, and then just make the line that I need to cut from there. Now, they actually make a 45-degree jig to go on your miter saw so you can make cuts greater than 45, but I just put a block behind that and held this. A clamp probably would have been a good idea, but I mean, YOLO? Do people still say that? I don't know. Anyway, just lined everything up and cut it with my miter saw. Now, I did do the old carpenter measure twice, cut once thing here, and double checked the piece that I cut off of the other end did match up relatively fine with the piece that I was about to cut, and it did, so I carried on with that cut. And this next part's pretty straightforward. Just lay everything down, kind of measure, make sure you've got it where you want it, and again, we're taking a drill, we're countersinking these holes, and we're using the same Torx head screws to secure this middle brace to each side. So right here, my frame is completed. I have 3 8-foot studs, and they were right at $4 a piece, so I'm sitting at $12 right here, not including my screws. Of course, there's 10 screws in there, so whatever that is. Next, I'm using this paneling that looks like beadboard that's going behind that, and that was right at $25 at the Big Orange store. And we're just going to lay this paneling on this frame face down. And it probably wouldn't have been a bad idea to put some glue on this where it all connected, because I'm just attaching it with some 16 gauge brads here. And then you may be asking, man, why are you making a 4-foot by 8-foot door? It's because I framed out for a 4-foot by 8-foot door. If you're building this and you don't have that much of a door frame, you can just cut the paneling and make your frame a different size. It's kind of why I haven't given any real measurements here either, but I just a little bit of planning ahead saved me, a couple of cuts, and everything's just a factory edge now. And of course, hitting this diagonal with brads is a little bit tricky, but just take your time and kind of line everything up and it'll go pretty smooth. And would you look at that? This thing is actually starting to look like a door now. And the last piece to this puzzle is just the sliding door hardware. I found this on Amazon for $60, and you just basically search the size of the door and the door opening that you need, and then put it in your shopping cart and hit buy now. It's pretty straightforward. They ship it right to your door. It's crazy. I'm surprised more people don't use it, actually. It does, of course, come with instructions. It's pretty straightforward, though. The only thing that I really needed that for was the measurements of where the hardware should bolt to the door and stuff. All the holes on the track are 16 inches apart, so they should line up with your studs perfectly. I've got a header above the door, so that wasn't a main concern. Here, I just basically wanted to get it all the way to the end of this wall right here. So I did have to actually go on the inside of this unfinished wall and add a scrap piece of wood to anchor the left side too. Once I got the height measurement that I wanted, I marked this first hole and drilled it, and then I attached the whole rail to that one bolt, and then just used a level to get the rest of my marks on down the line. And some of you may have noticed that I'm struggling going up and down this ladder. Well, like 2 years ago, I had ACL surgery and my knee still sucks. Thanks for asking. This kit does come with several different kinds of fasteners depending on what kind of wall you are attaching this to. But since I've got a wood wall here, I'm just using the lag bolts and the spacers that they provide to keep that rail off of the wall just a little bit. A second set of hands is nice on this part, but you can just attach one bolt and then work your way to the other end and do it fine all by yourself. Now onto the hardware on the door. You will need to take a few measurements, and the instructions tell you exactly where to put these, but pretty much just square everything up, make a line, and then I use the actual piece of hardware itself as my marker for the holes. And if I had the right size drill bit, it probably would have worked out fine, but mine was just a hair small. So my bolts came up a little bit wonky, but I made it work anyway. And once you get everything lined up, you just tighten both these nuts down and then repeat this process on the other side, of course. And they send these little spacer things that you're supposed to screw in on the top side that go in between the top of the door and the track, and they apparently are there so the door doesn't jump off of the track for whatever reason. It might work anyway. I went ahead and put these on there as not exactly per the instructions, and I could put the door on the track with them on, which in my mind means that the door can come off the track with them on. But it might be some kind of insurance that you can put on there, and it might help in certain situations. But I don't really see the point in this other than, I don't know, peace of mind, maybe placebo effect. Your mileage may vary. Anyway, the door is now on the track, but if you leave it just like this, it's going to roll off of the ends when you go to slide it. So luckily, they send these little door stops that you just slide on the end where you want the door to stop. Maybe that's why they call them that. Again, straightforward install. You slide them on to where you want them to be, and then they have Allen set screws that you just tighten down when you get them locked in. The only issue you may run into is if you don't want your door to go all the way to the end, you may actually have to take out one of those anchor lags that's in the wall to get that stop past it or before it, or prepositions. And lastly, there is a guide that is supposed to go in a groove on this bottom board here that they send with you. That would have been good information for the instructions to say before I built this frame, but they didn't. Anyway, I wasn't going to use it anyway. As you can tell, there's quite a bit of gap between the floor and the door there, and it's because we're putting flooring down on top of this concrete, so I didn't know how high that was going to be. I'm probably going to wind up putting a block or something down into the concrete right here and just making it work. I think these came out awesome, and most importantly, my wife loves them. So anyway, let me know what you think down in the comments, and if I helped you out, give me a thumbs up. Thanks for watching.